Nance on commentary of the last game on CBS said this is probably the wackiest year that you can remember in the NFL, and the endings of some of the games this week have proven just so. Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Instant Reaction Podcast. My name is Shane Brennan. I'm joined with Brian Leary, and when I say instant, I mean instant because the ending to the Steelers-Lions game has just unfolded in front of us with just a bizarre set of circumstances where it looked like the Lions had scored. It went back to an offensive a pass interference, and they had a few more plays, and in the very last play of the game, Jared Gosh managed to run in. There was a lot of these referee calls. In the end, the referee calls there is a touchdown, which means everyone in Detroit thought that they won, but he said, but there's an offensive pass interference and the time was run out, and by rule, the game is over. Steelers win. Bizarre set of circumstances. Final score 29-24. Brian, crazy ending, but let's be fair about this. I think if we stand back and look at the game overall, the Steelers were the better team throughout because the Lions defense just let them run all over them for most of the game.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Shane. They would have been unjust on the Steelers fans and that organisation for them to have lost a game which they played. I won't say they were comprehensive, but they played efficient football, ran the ball very, very well. And I mean, the Lions defence, I know Kieran Boyle spoke about it recently around the fact that they're missing so many players in the secondary, but they were gashing the run in their own game. And it's amazing one field goal miss, which looks like a bog standard field goal for a guy like Boswell who's so consistent, changes the whole dynamic of the game. They go and score a touchdown. They can score another touchdown, which is ruled out for pass interference. There's a few plays on the drive which were flags against the Steelers. It just looked like the Steelers were doing everything to give the game away. And even at the very end, as you said, it looked like the Lions had a huge opportunity to get a win, in which they really wanted to deserve. And this Lions team they're literally on the last legs now. It doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. But they got the Vikings on Christmas Day, and then they got to play on the road in Soldier Field. But I mean, if results go the way which many will expect next weekend, the Lions season is effectively done, which is a big surprise. But they haven't been consistent. They haven't played well over the course of the season. You saw it yourself. It took 3 quarters before they got any kind of offense going whatsoever. It just went at the races all night. And it's a great win for the Steelers, who, for many, would have thought that this was the real stumbling block type of game.
Yeah, interesting. A stat popped up there. I think there's over 103 games where Mike Tomlin has been up by 12 points in the fourth quarter, and he hasn't lost a single one of them, and that stat is upheld. The fact that the Steelers were 12 points up, in the fourth quarter shows how inconsistent the Lions have been for most of the game. I mean, Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell had pretty much had their way with them in the run game. I think their offensive line is beat up. They're playing with the third. They had 3 different guys playing center Detroit throughout the game, so I think that just affects us, just the kind of season that they're having. I think it's just as we're recording here, we're still trying to wrap our head around that ending. I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we convene for our live show on Monday night. But there's a lot of other big results. Brian, let's talk about what happened between the Jags and the Broncos. And I said it on a preview show on Thursday. I'm waiting for somebody to go in and be that team to obsess the Broncos. So this plays a good game from start to finish. It doesn't let the Broncos sneak in with some sort of fourth quarter comeback. And the Jaguars, who are now, after winning 6 games in a row, their longest win streak since 1999, or longest win streak in my lifetime, I think. It depends on where you wanna measure it. Just played superb football. I mean, you've been banging on this drum in fairness here, Brian. Trevor Lawrence really hot today. 3 touchdowns. Ran when he needed to run. He was really efficient. Travis Etienne, really good stuff. Parker Washington had a great 60-plus yard play that ended leading up towards the big sort of go-ahead score, because it's a bit tit for tat in the first half. It ended up being 34-20 in favor of the Jags. Like, it's amazing that we're talking about the Jags potentially in the battle to try and top their division. You're actually looking at the way the AFC is going now. It's not a million miles away from them in a position where they could even be the number 1 seed, and that's just how good they're playing right now. It's unthinkable considering that this is the same team that we saw, get their asses handed to them at Wembley not so long ago.
Yeah, I selected the Jags to win this, Shane, so I'm smelling myself, as they say. That was a really efficient performance from the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, we touched on it within the group, how well he played over the course of the fourth quarter. Like his ball placements throughout the course of the game, there's been numerous replays already of some of his plays where he was on the perimeter, and not necessarily the ones where he's going out to the good side, the one where he's coming over to the left-hand side, which he's essentially throwing across his body. And like there were big darts going in there, and they really did a number on this Broncos defense, which has played so well over the course of the season. But the one thing, despite everyone lauding it up there how well the Broncos defense has played, they've actually given up quite a lot of points of late, in games. And I looked at it as, like, if this Jags offense plays in the manner in which they've been playing of late, why can't they go in there and upset the odds. I mean, their defense is also we're talking about complementary football in this league at this time of the year, and the Jags are one of those teams that are just putting it all together. Yeah, look, the Broncos came back to a certain. They didn't really because they took a field goal and we were down by 2 touchdowns. Like we've seen time and time again over the course of the season. Early on in the season, Broncos at home, big leads, giving up, and they come back. They came back last week against the Packers. It just felt like you can't continue to keep doing that against teams in this league because eventually, especially a team like the Jags who are going for the division, and now very much in the sweepstakes, as you said, for the one seed. What's to say that that's not against the realms of possibility, depending on the permutation of results over the next fortnight. But yeah, it's a huge result for the Jags, and maybe people start to take notice because, as I said, I've been banging the drum. Kieran Boyle's been a bit up and down on whether this team is for real. There's been conversations here in the season where Trevor Lawrence's future is there. I think that conversation going away now because the Jags, for me, are a real danger out for going into the playoffs. Should they make it? And right now, it looks like they're very much going to be in the mix to be there.
Yeah, I think one of the key areas of this game was just I think just discipline on the part of Denver. There was one touchdown which really got the Mile High crowd booing. The fact that it was called pass interference against a Denver defender, a correct call by the way. Jacksonville ended up so the following drive or following play getting the touchdown, and I think the key part of the third quarter. But even just look at the statistics. I mean, the Jags only gave away 2 penalties of 20 yards. The Broncos gave away 6 for 61, which isn't the worst stats in the world, but in games like this, and when you have two top teams, that's just the kind of momentum swing different. There was a couple of times where penalties came at the wrong time for that Denver defense, and the Jags were just really clean, a high time of possession. Just played some really good football. I'm excited to see what they'll be able to do in the playoffs. As of course, we can look forward to them playing there. Quick mention this, by the way. Just that AFC South race, we were talking about the fact that the Texans were expected to walk over the Raiders. They had a really tough game at home to the Raiders. Ashton Genty getting a nice touchdown, 23-21 in favor of Houston. They won the game, fair play to Houston, but certainly not as easy as they would have liked to be.
No, they never really got going. And you bear in mind the first touchdown in the game was a pick six off the Geno interception. So it took nearly the fourth quarter before they actually had a score their own, which was the Dalton Schultz touchdown throw from Jordan from CJ Stroud. But look, sometimes you need these games. The Texans have been blowing teams out, and the Raiders were given no chance. I mean, they were 40-point underdogs going into the game. But in fairness to the Raiders, they played really well in the game. They showed that they really still have an ambition to try to go out and win games. And as we know, draft period will be soon upon us for teams who are in the playoffs, and it's coming next week. I mean, there's only 2 games in the 9 o'clock window next weekend, Shane. 2 games. Talk about one level of NFL against the other. The Raiders hosting the Giants and the Eagles going into Buffalo. I mean, that's a huge game in terms of the playoffs. And then on the other side, you've got basically the first pick of the draft ball. But the Raiders will probably go into that with a lot of confidence on the back of playing really tough against the team. And I thought the play at the end was dubious, to be honest. I thought the Nico Collins catch at the end he was in bounds. I didn't think he did get in bounds, and that would obviously change the dynamic. Whether they have to kick a field goal, and maybe the Raiders would have got another opportunity. But the Raiders would have got home, ruining a few missed opportunities in the game. But yeah, a better performance than what we've been seeing. Bearing in mind they didn't score last week, and they gave 31 points in Philadelphia.
Right, quick spin for around a few scorelines. The last game that late window, the Falcons beat the Cardinals 26-19 in Arizona. Interesting, if you wanted to buy a ticket for that game this morning, you could have gotten for $12. I would have thought that was pretty good entertainment value from Kirko Chains and Co. In the early window, some things interesting to look at. The Vikings bet the Giants 16-13. The only thing I was saying that is fact in the first half, Jackson Dart threw 2 passes into the hands of another player, one to a New York Giant and one to a Minnesota Viking. That was just the kind of day that was had there. I think we're not going to talk much more about that. Bengals bet the Dolphins 45-21. Mixed day for Quinn Ewers. My mix very good. I don't know who among us decided to pick the Dolphins in our picks this week. Whoever that guy was is an idiot, especially.
Shame on him, or shame on Shane.
I know. I think I was 2-7 in the early window today. I had an absolute nightmare. And one of the big games that a nightmare interesting was the Saints Jets game. I mean, firstly, obviously, Charlie Smyth kicked 5 field goals today. Incredible haul, incredible day out for him. Which just like that whole storyline just keeps going and going. But the Saints at large, I mean, this is now 3 wins in a row. There are teams who are in a bad situation who benefit from draft capital by losing, and there are teams who you think are really trying to build momentum because of what they can do next year. We'll talk about the NFC South matchup between the Panthers and the Buccaneers straight after this, Brian. But I think for the Saints, this win is important because when you're in a division like the NFC South, it's so winnable. Getting this momentum now and Tyler Shook trying to prove what he can do can be really important, at least in building belief and confidence that next year you can actually go and do something. So, in line with also a good performance from Smith, I think you have to say that that the Shook and Co. I seem to keep building momentum, keep getting things better and better every week, even if this was against the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, they just run hiding to nothing against a team that found form. You just touched on it there, third victory in a row. But I think what's even more significant is the two victories in which they had of late are divisional wins. I mean, they beat the Bucks, beat the Panthers, two teams that we're going to discuss now who are challenging, and inevitably one of them will win the NFC South this year. So yeah, I imagine the Saints fans are probably looking at just kind of going like, this is an off year, and yet we're seeing it the back end of the season. We're able to string a number of results together. I said on the show last week, Tyler Shook has given the Saints a real problem and a nice problem to have because people are assuming that they were going to be drafting a quarterback in the next draft come April, but maybe that's not the case anymore. I think he's starting to prove that he's worthy of being the Saints quarterback. And sometimes you find your quarterback we don't believe necessarily you are going to get it. He looks solidified, playing really well. It's interesting as well. Since Charlie Smyth went into the team, the whole dynamic has changed in terms of where they are. I mean, they came back even the game prior to that when they lost to the Dolphins. They came back to 16-0 down that game and nearly sneaked the victory. And then they've gone on to win the next three. So probably still end up winning another game just before the end of the season. I always would caution because we've seen before, which NFL seasons are topsy turvy, and one season is very different to the next. There's no assurances because you finish the season on an upward trajectory that's going to last going into next season. It's too long an off season. But yeah, for Saints fans, it's much better. It's improving, and you would think next season, if things are done the right way in the off season in terms of bringing in players and free agency in the draft, that they'll be back challenging within the division.
Let's talk about that NFC South matchup because the Panthers come away from this 23-20 victors. I was watching this sort of quite closely in the first half, and I was thinking, Jesus, Bryce Young looks very tetchy. Looks like he spent too much time on the ball. Looked like he was, sometimes when you watch a quarterback and there's confidence in what they're doing and where they're passing it to, I just didn't feel like he knew what he was doing most of the time. But as the game went on, it was actually Baker Mayfield to look like that. I mean, a lot of the time he was on the ball, he just didn't seem to get options open for him. The last play of the game, I think, was a real signpost of how disjointed this Buccaneers offense can be. There was a moment where Mike Evans sort of goes in the zig of a play, and I think Baker Mayfield thought he was going to stay going to the left, and then he threw the ball just as Evans zagged, and then the Panthers defenders there, and has a nice little easy pickoff. The atmosphere is really big here in Carolina. These two teams are playing each other on Week 18 in Tampa Bay. Bryce Young looking pretty sleek. I think the further we got into the game, throwing 2 touchdowns, one amazing play, like a proper playmaker's play, passing over to, I think it was Tedero McMillan. Huge consequences here because now the Panthers are 8-7 and the Bucs are at 7-8. The Panthers and Bucs do have different challenges ahead of them, and I think the Panthers play the Seahawks next week, whereas the Bucs play the Dolphins. But this is a playoff team or as close to a playoff game as you can get in Week 16 for both of these teams. And Carolina showed themselves up to be the team with just that little bit more steel, especially when it comes to getting that big offensive play that they needed.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, despite the Dolphins lost today and lost last week, that they would go and beat this team next week. Because right now, this Bucs team are going in one direction, and it's not going very well. I mean, they're on a skid, a big time skid, and inevitably probably will come down to that game in Week 18 because you would expect to see Seahawks have too much for the Panthers team, with all due respect to the Panthers and their fan base. So you won't, yeah, okay, it's going to come down to that game. And the problem is for the Panthers, they've struggled over the course of the season. They've been really good at home, really efficient. They're getting, you're looking at a team building in the right direction. They're winning these kind of big games at home. They've beaten the Rams. They found a way, despite not having their best performances today, to get out over the line and win this game. And it's a huge divisional clash and a huge divisional win. And now you're looking at it going, okay, can they return the form of that again and go into Tampa and win 2 weeks' time? It's probably not as daunting as it may seem, because the Bucs right now, is next week's game a get right game for the Bucs? Because it has to be, because they just don't look anything close to what we thought we'd see. I mean, we were talking on stage earlier in the season about this team being a sneaky team and a dark horse in the playoffs. Baker Mayfield says, I wouldn't think he's falling off the cliff, but he's been erratic. And the rookie wide receiver had a great start to the season. The rookie, he's kind of gone off the grid. Evans is back making plays. It's just nothing seems right. The run game is not at the levels in which we saw last year. Just top Bolton, the pressure we saw him going to have a really adverse reaction in the press conference recently. It just feels to me like the Panthers will find a way to win this division, but it's more because of how difficult this Bucks team are right now.
Yeah, I mean the Bucks have lost the last 3, and who knows? That depends how far this slide goes. It could turn into a loss of 5 to end their season, which definitely doesn't put on a good complexion on things. Right, a quick spin through the other scorelines before we have a quick chat about the big game that happened on Saturday night. The Bills bet the Browns 23-20. That scoreline looks closer than the game kind of actually played out. The Browns kind of looked like they were building in late. I think the big thing for that is like the Bills have played really good offense in the first half. Josh Allen goes off and gets an extra at half time on his foot. Turns out he's okay, comes back in, but the offense just doesn't really just goes nowhere near to showing up to the extent that they were previously, and they ran out with the victory. Elsewhere, the Chargers beat the Cowboys 34-17, and the Titans bet the Chiefs 26-9, which is a crazy thing to be saying out loud. I think it's a key case of one team fighting because they still have something to fight for in terms of pride for the Titans, and the Chiefs just never seem to get going. But a big thing for now is Gardner Minshew, in a similar fate to what happened to Patrick Mahomes last week, has got out with an ACL injury, so it looks like he's also out for the season. I didn't see anything from the Chiefs there to make me think that they were actually really playing for anything. So I don't know if there's anything from those 3 games that caught your eye before we talk about what happened in the Packers Bears game.
Well, first of all, I want to say I selected the Titans to win. I'll just throw that one in again. Nobody else went for the Titans. I thought the Chiefs season is done. And in a strange way, I think the most impressive performance to see them was the Chargers. A lot of people were opposed to them. They were favourites going into Dallas. Everyone assumed Dak Prescott and Cole would put a number up on this Chargers defense. And what we've seen over the Chargers in the last few weeks, they're winning games now. Everyone assumed they'd lose. A lot of people had them to lose this game. A lot of them didn't think they'd beat the Eagles. And even last week's victory was another one that which people kind of thought, okay, maybe that's not for them. But now they're in a situation where they're guaranteed a playoff spot. And because of the result that's come into season, all of a sudden that Chargers-Broncos game at the end of the season becomes even more significant because they're going to play each other in week 18, and it could be for the division and potentially even could be for the first seed. So it's like all these things are changing. And Justin Hare playing with a serious injury to his left arm is going in there, put up huge numbers, scoring a touchdown. So I think it's really impressive for him to go on the road. It just shows the magnitude of the where they are under Coach Harbaugh. Yeah, I'll let you start off the talking points because there was a lot of talking points to talk about in terms of the Bears and Packers on Saturday night. We don't normally talk about Saturday night games and instant reactions, but when we have to shout, I got to shout it into the mix.
I feel like I almost want to go back and just talk about the Seahawks Rams game again because that was just the most amazing. Like I woke up on Friday morning and watched the 40-minute things of that. It was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and I had this exact same thing again. I was like, well, I'm going to be staying up on Sunday night to watch the Patriots, so I'll get some sleep on Saturday. Watch the Bears Packers game on Sunday morning. You know, you see it running through. Okay, there's an injury to Jordan Love. He goes out. The Packers still end up building a bit of steam, and then by the end of it, you realize that in the fourth quarter, because when the fourth quarter started, or just at the end of the third quarter, the Packers get the touchdown and got 13 to 3 points up. You know, the Bears get a field goal, they give up a field goal, they get another field goal again, then they get the onside kick, which again is like an 8% completion rate. Managed to get to keep going to get the touchdown, and then the touchdown pass at the very end in overtime that Caleb Williams threw to Moore was just outstanding kind of shot at glory, as was, by the way, the pass for Walker in at the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, or near the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, it's rare like you get an ending like that so much. And I mean, you think of just the nature of this rivalry that's always been spoken of as being one of the greatest in the NFL, and it hasn't really felt like that because these teams haven't been competing at the same time, haven't been competitive at the same time. But that was just a wonderful chapter to add into it. And yet another fourth quarter victory comeback from Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and co. This is starting to become a part of their DNA. Now, we saw this like with Washington last year. It's not necessarily a sustainable part of their DNA, but I mean, Jesus, against the Packers team, beat up or not beat up, to be able to pull that off and just to sort of bring that magic and the deep passes that Caleb threw in the second half was just electrifying.
Yeah, there's other comeback victories this season, Shane, where you could see the momentum building in the fourth quarter, and gradually you're getting up to stage. Okay, the Bears are serious; they're coming back. And even the game in Lambeau 2 weeks ago, where they came back and nearly won it at the end. But this game, I was talking to Kieran and Connor, it's magic because you're getting two tales. One tale of woes from one person who's a Packers fan, and then you've got the Bears fan who's jubilant and so excited about the victory. But Connor, and I'm sure you'll get into it in more detail on Monday night, even said to me today, we essentially did nothing for 58 and a half minutes of the 60 minutes of the game, because the Packers had the opportunity before halftime to put it away and go in with a double digit lead. They end up having to rely on a field goal, 6-0 up, and you're leaving the Bears hanging around. But it looked like a dagger was in with the touchdown to Dobbs in the third quarter. And somehow, miraculously, they recovered the onside kick after a field goal. And even at that stage, you think that, okay, the Packers are going to recover the field goal, or sorry, recover the onside kick. Dobbs has the miscue. And then again, like, it felt like a bit of a Hail Mary throw at the end for the touchdown, because it was fourth down play. It's not even like they scored on the fourth down or second down. They scored on the very last play, which says would have been the last play of the game. He's scrambling. He's nothing to do but throw it into the corner of the end zone and hope his player can make a huge play. He does. The touchdown, walk-off touchdown, I said to Lazar, kind of reminded me of a walk-off touchdown many years ago from the Giants in Philadelphia, where they could have easily went and taken a field goal to win the game. And I thought at that stage the Bears had the opportunity. Like, it was next score wins. The Bears were driving methodically at that stage, thinking, right, they're going to get the field goal range. DeSantos will get the game winner, and off we go. But I suppose it's the confidence and trust that Ben Johnson has in Caleb Williams, and that's obviously a very last-minute relationship right now. Because even today, watching his press conference after, how he speaks highly of the coaching staff, and he says it's the best coaching staff he's ever been around. And Ben Johnson is putting them in positions to win all these games, and he has the confidence for him to go and make that throw. And like, DJ Moore comes up with a magnificent play. Look, it's great to see, because every year we have a team and a storyline that kind of builds and builds, and you wonder where this storyline is going to end. And right now for the Bears, like, they're in the playoffs now. The likelihood is they'll win the division, they'll get a home game. You bet against them in the home game, but in the divisional round. There's also a scenario where these two could play during the wildcard round. If the Bears are second seed and the Packers are seventh, here we go again, game 3, and it's a bit like this World Series. Give it. As a neutral, I want Bears Packers.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, give me a round 3 of this. I'll happily watch it. All right, I think that's it for our instant reaction, because Carrie Underwood is literally on my screen saying we're waiting all day for Sunday night, and I have also been waiting all day for Sunday night. So I think that's it for us. We'll be reacting to whatever happens in Patriots and Ravens, as well as having a more deep dive for everything else to be happening across the league, and just another crazy weekend that we should be savoring before they run out on Monday night, as the guys return for our live show as usual on Monday night from 9 o'clock. For now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.